Right, so we're live. Welcome to the first De-Restricted podcast. I haven't done this before. It feels a bit weird saying De-Restricted podcast. First of all, how are you, Steve? It's been ages, actually, since we saw each other.
It has been good. Hey, Piers, thanks so much for inviting us. I just need to make a disclaimer, first of all. Now, if I say anything is out of hand, I'm going to put it down to this double espresso. So that's my excuse. And yeah, I mean those images, the graphics you had for the podcast, stunning, right? Fair
Thank
dues.
you. The images are from AI, actually. It's just like I just discovered this incredible app called Midjourney, and you can just prompt it. So I put in like Wales, photographer, mountain biking, mountains, and it just created. And I had to write in like micro world and like a few other things like colorful background just to like align it with the other ones. And then it just gives me like all these variations of this image, and I can just select one and then make iterations on that and then upscale it. And it's quite interesting actually what you can do with it. So.
I mean, they are very striking. So yeah, top job on that one for sure.
All right, so I've got some questions for you.
Did you see how I flipped the conversation around there a minute?
Yeah, you tricky. I know. Yeah, you're so used to asking questions, aren't you? I'm actually normally on the other side of the camera too, so it does feel a bit awkward. But
I can tell you something. I'm the one feeling awkward.
Are you? Nice.
No,
I don't want you to feel awkward. That's just the coffee running through you.
No, honestly, do you know what? I'm just happy to be here, just chatting bikes with you. It's great, as long as we are going to just chat bikes, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's get into the first question. So you've travelled the world, running in some of the most epic places on the planet. I see you on EMBN all the time in these dream locations. So the question is, which country makes the best beer?
Oh wow! Straight in with that one, Piers. Fair dues. Which country makes the best beer? I'd probably go with Oregon. I think IPAs in Oregon. When I first went there, I think Sven Martin, photography, says, "Oh, you need to try the IPAs." I think, "Well, I can drink IPAs in Wales," and he said, "No, you need to drink the IPAs in Oregon." And of course, when I got there, I realised how big a deal it was. With like, I don't know which ones they were, Deschutes and breweries such as that. So I think Oregon has been the best beer with the best temperature I've had. I think.
I didn't think you were going to say that. I have a friend, and he's an old friend of mine, and he's Dutch, and his dad is like a beer competition judge. So he basically tastes beer and judges beer. He's also a hop merchant. And I asked him what his favorite beer was, and actually he said that like the British microbreweries were like his favorite beer, like they always win.
Yeah. However, if I was to match the drink itself with the occasion and the location, I think for me, Guinness in Ireland every day of the week. West coast of Ireland, wild Atlantic, beautiful mountains, good banter in pubs. I think it's not just the beer, it's everything combined, right? So, and and obviously I drink wine as well. Probably southwest France is my favorite wine region, Languedoc. So I didn't think
you got the important question out of the way.
I really didn't think we'd start with that one.
So it looks like you're living the dream. You're on the bike pretty much every day. I mean, obviously there's like always a social media personality or like a work personality and like the reality. But like to a lot of people, it does look like you spend every single day on the bike. So are you actually living the dream?
Hey, look, I'm very lucky to do what I do, but. For me, an old man doing what I do is quite physical and quite demanding. Like today, I've just come in off a shoot. When you're presenting for 7 hours and riding at the same time, riding uphill, riding downhill, it's physical, it's challenging, but I enjoy it. Am I living the dream? Do you know what, Piers? I mean, I used to work for the National Park. I used to work for farmers digging holes. I think you make out of it what you will, really. I enjoyed digging holes, chatting to farmers all day. I do like being outside. It's true, I do go to some fantastic places, and it can be incredibly difficult sometimes when you're taking filmers into... kind of quite, I wouldn't say hostile, just like physically demanding places, which e-mountain bikes let us go into. So, I'm thinking, places like Neudarts, one of Britain's last wildernesses. You're going into the unknown. You don't know what's there. It can be scary. So, as much as it's pleasurable, it can have its edge at the same time, I think. So, I mean, obviously, e-mountain bikes isn't what I've always done. I've done I was downhill was my thing for 20 years. So, yeah, I spent 20 years going down. Now, it's the last 7 years going up. So, it's like,
You mentioned like the physical demands of the job. Like, I mean, it is difficult to ride a bike, but this is also one of the great things about e-bikes is that they allow people to ride later in life. They allow people to, get back into shape. They allow people to, live a better life for longer. And there's different measurements of age. One is like your chronological age, which is basically like from the point you were born to the point where you are now. And then there's also another measure of age, which is your biological age. So this is like related to your health. And I was wondering, I mean, obviously you spend a lot of time on the bike, but like what else do you do to, because obviously your biological age is probably much lower than other people your age because of how active you are. But do you do other things to stay healthy, like in terms of diet, other exercises?
well, you kind of implied that I spend my spare time drinking beer. Yeah, yeah, I do. So I'm currently doing this Chris Hemsworth program of body weight training. So I do that. So I try to do that every day. But one thing which I recently got into again, my background is motorcycles. So I'm now competing in motorcycle trials again, and I think
Oh, wow.
for someone my age, it's good to keep the agility and the mobility going. And I think trials is a sport that allows you to do that. I mean, I did a trial last weekend, and I think it took me 3 days to get over it. It's six hours of concentration and sections, and yeah, it's good. So I do other things as well as standing up drinking beer, obviously.
So, I mean, you're spending a lot of time on the bikes, and you're obviously, you're a racer in the past. So, are you still taking any king of the mountains on the trails that you ride?
Uh, no, no, I don't. And there's kind of a reason for that. I I would say that I've got to, what I do is already very intense. The job at EMBN, we're shooting, 4 videos a week. So I think there's an element of self-preservation. Whereas, when you race downhill, which I did for a while, well, quite a long time, it is calculated risk. And, I know I'm pretty tuned into being able to push myself sort of as hard as I can. I've definitely backed off and trying to preserve myself a bit. But
I hear that. I was the same. I mean, I still sometimes like to push it, but I definitely don't go as far as I used to go after a few pretty big crashes in the last year. So,
in the last
yeah,
year, are you okay, Piers?
in the last years. Yeah, I'm okay. Still here. Yeah, so just going back to the past a little bit, I mean, I got into bikes through BMXing, like most kids in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, just bombing hills with no brakes on, old BMXs. But
So where did
the
you
thing
grow
that
up?
actually,
Where did you grow up then?
I grew up down in Kent.
Okay, right.
Normally, like riding bikes at like cricket matches when my dad was playing cricket, which I was never really interested in. I would just be riding bikes with the other kids.
So what BMX
Um,
did you have?
Now you're doing that switching thing again.
Well, it's a chat. It's a chat, not an interview, right?
Rally burner. I think like most kids, I had a rally
Oh,
burner,
which
the
one?
yellow and blue one.
Oh, you had the yellow and blue one. Cool, right.
And you?
I had a variety of them. I did have a yellow and blue one with the yellow wheels. And my mate had some Z wheels. Do you remember them? Anyway, I jumped
No.
jumped off a wall and you used to put them in the fridge
The
to
mag
straighten.
wheels.
No, the Z wheels. You used to put them in the fridge to straighten them up if you bent them. But yeah, good days, right? Learning how to wheelie and all that.
But this was before mountain biking. So like my journey into mountain biking came from magazines. Like my cousins live in California, and once a year they would come to visit us, and they would bring over like, mountain bike action magazine and
Yeah.
motocross action magazine, and that was like the only media that I could find for mountain biking. I think it was even before MBUK at that time, and I get a lot of mileage out of that magazine. I would just look at it for pretty much the whole year because that was all there was. There was nothing on TV. There was no YouTube. It was just a different time. And
Yeah.
anyway, the point I wanted to make is like at that time, it was really somehow like, it's almost like it was very scarce. It was very rare, the content. So it kind of like you got really into this one topic. And nowadays, like my kids are really into biking, but they would rather watch a Mr. Beast video most of the time than watch a mountain biking video. And I was just wondering, do you think it's still possible to get kids as passionate about biking nowadays when there's so much content like screaming for attention?
So, yeah, I'm kind of with you, really. I like BMX magazines, Harry Leary on his, what was the bike he rode? I can't remember. But like Harry Leary doing a power slide, I mean, iconic moments on two wheels. So to answer your question, do you know what? It's funny timing, actually, Piers, because I've just been filming in the Forest of Dean today, and it's half term in England at the minute, and it blew my mind how many kids were out with their mums and dads and granddads in the woods. So so on that level, I do see them there, but I don't. We used to go out and build jumps in the woods. I see less of that. And having said that, I mean, I don't know what it's like where you live, but the spread of hand-built trails in the past 5 years has been pretty incredible. So,
Because of COVID.
yeah, but what I don't see is actually the people building these wedge jumps and stuff like that. So, I think the kids are there doing it. It's just I'm probably somewhere else doing something else. I'm somewhere else doing something different. But I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
I mean, it's great that there's so much content, I think, because you can also like dive deeper into it than it used to be possible to. But I just wonder, like everything's diluted, like the more content that is out there, like everything somehow has like less worth and less value. Like a magazine that you would look at every day for like a year, that just doesn't happen. I'll get my kids a magazine, they'll look at it for like a few days, maybe at best, like here and there, but they don't really like. Yeah, it's interesting.
Here's a funny one for you, right? So there was a kid and his dad out today. The dad was probably my age, and the kid was, I don't know, probably 18. And I could hear this kid saying, "There's Tom Cardy." I mean, we were in the middle of the woods, right? There's Tom Cardy. I'm thinking, and he's pointing at me, and I'm thinking, dude, you've got it so wrong. I'm old enough to be Tom Cardy's granddad. So obviously, here's a kid who has been looking at videos or Instagram, and I mean, I was flattered, obviously, but I guess
that's amazing.
There's just so much out there, isn't there? That
doing some bike flips, and you've been doing like bar spins and stuff. You haven't modified your bike to do the bar spins yet.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
So, back to your past again. So what did you learn working at Dirt Mag?
Appropriate glass, look, IPA glass.
Nice, but no beer in it.
What did I learn at Dirt Mag? I pretty much learned everything. So I learned to become a journalist. I know journalist is a strong word. I mean, my wife teaches journalism at a uni, so she does it properly. So I learned how to write. I learned how to react to things very quickly. I learned how to take photographs because I was very fortunate enough to be employed at Dirt. And they said, when I was writing for quite a few years, and they said, "Oh, listen, if you can photograph as well, you've more value to us." So I learned how to take photographs, and I mean, I got many covers. Brendan Fairclough was my first one in Willingen in 2004, I think, something like that. So, yeah, I learned to photograph. I did my first piece to camera with Alex Rankin on Sprung in 2002, I think it was. I mean, you look back now, it's like horrific. It's absolutely so. I know things haven't got that much better, but
that's probably how I'm going to look back on this podcast, I think.
What do you mean?
My performance, not your performance.
Well, that was a good performance wandering off camera. I mean, I was thinking it's so.
I'm trying to sort the lighting out in here. It's a bit of to the listeners. There was a bit of a delay at the start of the podcast, so the lighting's changed from when I set up the camera. So if I'm looking a bit blown out, that's why.
Why is the light coming into the window or something?
No, it's just got dark outside.
These are schoolboy errors, Piers.
It's still late in the UK, I see outside.
Just
Or
about. Just about. Yeah.
Wales.
Just about. Yeah.
Amazing. So, yeah, something specific to bikes then. So, what's your favorite thing about EMTB and what's the worst?
Whoa. That's that's a big question, Piers. What is my favorite thing about EMTB? I think, okay, so the big picture, I feel very fortunate to be involved in mountain bikes at this moment in time because I think e-bikes are just amazing. And people ask me about what e-bike would I choose. I genuinely love every e-bike I ride. Yes,
They've got that good now, haven't they?
yeah, yes, you can go into the fine detail. And having tested bikes for 15 years, I know what it makes to make an exceptional bike. But I think that buzz of any bike is great. So it might be a low-powered hardtail, hub drive, or anything. It's all good stuff. I love the fact, obviously, come from a trials background. I love the fact that it's all about going up as well as down. So for me now, it's a complete day out when I go e-biking. It's the challenge of going up, and whether it be in the Alps or in Italy or in a dirty stream in northwest Scotland, I absolutely love every single minute of doing that. And the challenge, like physically, technically, and also kind of tuning into the differences of e-bike motors. Everyone says, this motor is better than that motor. I think with e-bikes, you learn to go with the motor in the same way as if you're riding a 125, a 250, or a 500 motorcycle. One's not better than the other. They're just different. So I think there's a lot of nonsense said about e-bike motors. If you want to go fast up a hill, you've got to be light. It's as simple as that. And if you're going to win races uphill, you've got to be light. I'm sure you'd agree with that as well, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So I love that. I love the adventure e-bikes allows me to do. I've definitely changed the type of riding I do. I think mountain biking has got into a bit of a rut. It's been kind of corralled into this, trail center bike park mentality. And, I found myself going up the same fire road and dropping into the same downhill trails. And I kind of broken free of that. And now I can just go, oh, I'll go and have a look at that. I'll go and have a look at that. And I think it opens your mind into doing different things. And I think I like that side of it. So I think maybe as much as I love the tech of bikes, and I think every time there's a new bike, I love getting into the detail of that, but I also like in my job searching out the inspirational content from travel point of view and trails point of view. So I like that as well. I like racing. I like racing and I hate racing. So that's my transition from love to hate. Is that I raced the EWS in Finale a few years ago, and probably one of the most physical things I've ever done on two wheels. I had double leg cramp, and the danger of going in between the trees on wet limestone in northern Italy is quite terrifying. But at the same,
Was that the hardest trail you've ridden?
it was the hardest event, yeah. EWS Finale. When you got Nico Vulios, who's 10 times world down champion, saying, "Guys, this is enough. This is as hard as the sport of VMTB needs to go." That says something. So, at the same time, I think what racing allows is lots of people with different abilities to go and ride very cool trails. So not everyone's there to win a race. So I think that side of things is great. If I was to choose one thing that I dislike about EMTB at the minute, it is the whole business of lightweight bikes and the messages that some people say about them. This is where the coffee kicks in, by the way. So
You're about to be controversial, like.
no, I just want to kind of get my thoughts out there. I think a lot of the messages of of lightweight e-bikes is the fact that they're more agile and nimble than full power bikes, and I think that is totally incorrect messaging. I think
Why?
yes, I'll get onto it. So I think because it's mixed up with some other messages as well. I think the silhouette of some lightweight e-bikes is more like mountain bikes. I think absolutely that is true. They are close to mountain bikes in that respect. I think the sound levels of some lightweight e-mountain bikes is, because it's so low, they're quite close to mountain bikes. But I think in terms of the handling, I think it's nonsense because agility comes from the rider and suspension design, not just the weight of a bike. If you look at motorcycle
And the chainstay length, I guess.
I mean, geometry is some part of that as well. So, if you look at motorcycle trials, probably one of the most gymnastic two-wheel sports in the world. It just so happens that the greatest rider, Tony Bow, he's on a Honda. The four-stroke Honda is like 10 kilos heavier than a two-stroke. So the whole thing about weight, it's just nonsense. It comes back to the same, 125, 250, 500 motorcycles. One's not better than the other. They're just different. It requires different skills to be able to handle them. So
Do you not think, if you're riding down a trail and there's an obstacle in the path, like a root or a rock or something, like the lighter weight just makes it easier to pop up over
I
it.
just totally disagree with that. It's like that's a skill thing, not a. It's
okay, but the same rider with the same skill level on the different bikes, like they'll be able to do a higher bunny hop on the lighter bike than the big bike.
No, I think it's timing. I think it comes. I think people make these.
There's a video idea for your channel.
Well, it's like
which bike can you bunny hop higher?
Well, put it this way. A 21 kilo full power e-bike with good suspension, really good supportive suspension characteristic is going to be more. I'm not going to use the word beginning with P. It is more. I want to say poppy. It's more poppy than a 19 kilo alleged lightweight bike. And let's not forget here that there is a very close, there's very close margins between what is a lightweight e-bike and a full power e-bike. You have some lightweight mid-power bikes which are 19 kilos. You've got bikes such as the Old Bear Wild or the 2018 Specialized Lever, which are like just over 20 kilos. So, lightweight and full. When does light to mid-power become a full power bike? I don't know the answer to that. Is it a weight thing? I don't think it is. But going back to your rock story, if you've got a really saggy lightweight bike, that's not going to get over the rock, right? That's a suspension kinematics thing, not a weight thing. I don't know. Coffee's kicked in, like I said.
Interesting. Need to try that out.
I don't know, Piers. I mean, you're a designer. You tell me. I mean,
I do notice a difference when I'm on a light bike versus a heavier bike. But I think that the benefits are incremental. Like it's not so absolute. It's not like one is good and the other one is bad.
They're just different, right? They're just different.
Yeah.
And I think, but I think it's that whole thing. They say that they're more agile. I think there's in certain respects they can be, but you could argue that they're more nervous rather than more agile.
They're more agile when you're putting them in the van. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. But again, so that's my answer to the things I dislike about e-mountain bikes at the moment is
the mixed messaging, or you think it's not truthful, the messaging.
I think it's the messages are mixed together. You've got silhouette, you've got noise, and you've got agility. There's three things, and I think they can be. I think you can't generalize that on all light to mid assist bikes.
Of course, it matters a lot on what kind of trail you're riding as well. I love riding light bikes, and I love riding like you. I love riding pretty much all bikes, just on different trails.
Yeah,
a different one is better under certain situations.
Let's not forget agility is an uphill thing as well as a downhill thing. So, you see a lot of the mountain bike media, and that's another thing. It's only taken some parts of the mountain bike media to understand that e-bikes are an uphill sport as well as a downhill sport, and they've been marking their e-bikes on their downhill ability. I mean, what a load of nonsense! It's like e-bikes.
That's an old school thinking, definitely.
It's totally old school thinking, and it
It's
shows
not
that.
just a shuttle, is it? Like that is actually one of the things I rode enduro motorcycles for years and motocross. I enjoy the challenge of going uphill as much as the downhill, like you,
Yeah.
like Charles. I mean, I also started off on like a TY80 back in the day. So
Oh, good shout.
trail bike.
That was
For anybody who doesn't know, old school trail bike.
no, probably
Which
the.
I actually wanted to be a motocross bike, so I would just rag it in like fifth gear around the fields, which it wasn't really. Once I started running it slower, I realized its benefits. But yeah, it was initially a bit of a disappointment until I
Yeah.
figured out what it was for.
I'm sorry to go on about lightweight bikes, but I do get bombarded with these statements, and it's like, the mountain bike industry went after the lightweight thing for years and years and years. I just think that e-mountain bikes shouldn't go after the same. The fact that it's we're trying to chase the lightest bike possible, whereas actually, do you know what? A 20 kilo e-mountain bike is in a good place.
But you're right. But that was to get there was also like a journey, because like when we switched from external batteries to in tubes, like the weight just skyrocketed. So it's been like a bit of a trip to bring the weight back down again. But like you say, I think some of these new carbon full power bikes, around 20 kilograms, that's a pretty decent weight already. But when you're getting up, the weight that they were a few years ago for the aluminium bikes with the first in tubes, like that was 25, 26. That was too heavy, I think.
So did you think there's a sweet spot for a sort of 700 watt hour 150 bike? Do you think there's a sweet spot for that?
I'm the one asking the questions.
Yeah, but Piers, you're a designer.
I do the colors, man.
No, it's like I tell you the reason I ask is that like downhill, the downhill went after the lightweight downhill bikes for many years, and I remember Trek the first session got to £29, and it was too light because it was too nervous. You couldn't ride those bikes at speed because you're getting bounced all over the place. So I think
I saw your video, like when you had the high bike enduro without a battery against, I think it was the Canyon full suspension.
Insane.
And your times were faster. I mean, that was a very telling video.
That was totally true because the high bike thing is, I forgot my shock pump, so there was too much sag on the high bike. The high bike was a 160mm travel bike. The Sender was 200mm. This is down.
No, the enduro is 180, I think.
Sorry, 180. But nevertheless, bad suspension setup. I was riding down one of the hardest downhill tracks in the world.
In Finale.
Was in San Remo, and I did it multiple times. I was thinking, what is going on here? And I was coming out of the corners on the Sender, thinking, I'm 8 seconds faster. And then you look at you get to the road on the bend. It's like, shit, I'm actually 8 seconds slower.
So have we nailed it? So that's what it comes down to. Basically, like when you ride a lighter bike, you feel like you're going faster, maybe.
Well, that's true, right? I mean, it's good, always good to have that feeling. So, that's maybe what it is, right? But you don't. I tell you what, you certainly don't feel faster going up hills, do you? Well, I don't at 90 kilos anyway.
Okay, so that comes on to the engine topic. So how important do you think it is that a brand creates its own e-bike ecosystem, like rather than just putting in like a Bosch or a Yamaha, like developing the motor, the remote, the software? Like, do you think, how important do you think that is?
Can you tell me what bikes those are that are coming on the market soon? Do you know that's all?
There's a lot of well, there's not a lot. Most brands take like a Bosch or a Yamaha or a Shimano system and put it into their bike. A few brands have taken the time to develop their own systems, and I just wonder, like
who?
I mean, what from your perspective and from a consumer's perspective, or other people you talk to, how important do you think that is? The bike.
I don't think it is important.
The bike says like high bike when you turn it on versus saying Bosch.
It's a conversation I have with most bike brands. They say they'd rather people go into the shops to buy, say, a Canyon or a Specialized or a high bike, whatever, than people going into the bike and demanding, I want a mountain bike with a Bosch motor, I want a mountain bike with a Yamaha motor. So I think that's the message that some of the brands would probably like me to communicate as a sort of journalist. But from my point of view, I think the bottom line is the motors have got to have um, have got to be good in the first place. They've got to be. I think the questions we need to be asking are these bikes reliable? Um, can you depend on them if you're in the middle of nowhere? I think that's the question rather than brands um, making people feel that the whole bike. Yeah, it's
I
tricky
mean,
one.
so you can still get enough differentiation between the brands through the frame design, the kinematic,
I
the
think I
design, the
think
look of
so.
it.
I think so. Yeah.
It's not necessary to have your own motor for the brands. I mean, in a motorcycle, like Honda has their own motor, KTM has their own motor, like Suzuki, Yamaha, they all have their own motor. So like that, and it does kind of influence the characteristic of the bike. And some of these bikes are defined by their motors. So I mean, I don't think we're there right now with e-bikes, but it was also maybe it was just out of necessity. Like, Bosch and Yamaha and Shimano, like their systems are now so good, and that was something that wasn't ever really the case. Maybe with the motorcycle industry, where there was like a supplier offering like a motor, and you could just concentrate on the kinematics and suspension. So
Yeah, that's
they've evolved differently, and I wonder whether
yeah, it's
that's
true,
part of
isn't
the
it?
reason.
Yeah, I remember some motorcycle brands. I think there was a British brand called Armstrong, and they used a was it a Rotax engine? What was in that bike? But then I think there was a wasn't there a Zax motor in some bikes, and yeah, but
Cannondale tried to make a motocross bike, didn't they, at one
yeah,
point?
but I guess you're dead right. Having a motor from another company in a motorcycle was quite different, wasn't it? Really, but do I think that it's essential?
Or just important,
I don't think so, Piers, really. Um, I don't
okay.
know what's in, no.
Do you think the color of your bike is more important?
So, oh, crikey, don't talk about that. That's one subject you do not want to bring up with me. I,
So what's your favorite color of bike?
I became public enemy number one with one company saying that the only performance advantage of this bike over another 150 is the paintwork and the color. I won't go into it, but that bike company didn't speak to me for
Are you
years.
the Clarkson of mountain biking?
No, what color? I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what color my bike is. I ride the bike. I don't look at I don't look at it. But then I'm in a fortunate position to
You get free bikes.
I
So.
ride lots of bikes. I'm there to ride the bikes, not to have them in
What color's your car?
the question is what color is my trials bike? And so I actually sit there. I sit there and look at my trials bike and think, oh, isn't that a beautiful bike? And it's kind of red and grey and black. And do you know what? A mountain bike, I genuinely did I ever choose it? I think probably the last time probably the last time I chose the color of a bike was my first mountain bike in 1988. Because it was a pearl white specialized. That is honestly the last time I chose the color of a bike.
So it's almost like a reason, like to not buy a bike, for example. Like if it's a really garish, horrible color or color combination, like that, like it's just better to make it a safer color, in your opinion, where it's not really a factor in
I don't know.
putting you off the
I
product.
mean, come on, Piers. If you go into a shop and you've got a high bike 160 there, which is in brown, and it's
Coffee.
no,
Let's get the terminology right, please.
no, I'm trying to make up a color. Okay, what if you go into
Coffee.
okay, coffee
You can't
color.
call a bike brown. It sounds awful.
Okay, well, what if it is brown? Okay, what if you go into a shop and you've
It's
got a
coffee,
a
macchiato,
brown coffee high bike,
espresso.
which is $3,000, and the exact same bike in a I don't know a yellow color is $2,000 more just because of the paintwork. You're going to buy the brown bike, right? Just paint it. Well, I don't know. People don't that. I mean, I got a friend who paints his bikes, and they look really good. But are we actually
Did you have a choice of your trial bike?
of my trial bike?
Like, did you have a choice what color it came in, or it was just like,
hell yeah,
it's that color?
Of course I did. I was like, well, I think I'll get that one, but I didn't. Obviously, the first and foremost was the fact that it was a 4-stroke, and it was a certain year. So, but the fact that it was the color was yeah. But what I'm saying is, I actually sit and look at the trials bike, which I definitely do not do with mountain bikes. They're like Yeah, chuck it in the garage.
That's because you just get black bikes. Maybe if your mountain bike was more colourful, you would sit and look at
That's
it.
not true. The last high bike I rode was really nice red paint on it. It was red and black and coffee, wasn't it? Was it coffee? Red, black. No, it was red, black, and anyway, that was a beautiful looking
We
bike.
have had some coffee colour bikes, yeah.
Yeah, but that was a beautiful.
What about graphics? Like, have you changed the graphics on your trail bike? Or do you have the Tony Boo replica?
No, I haven't got the Sony Boo replica. But look, let's not, let's be realistic here. Most people buy their bikes because of the color and the looks and the brand,
They
right?
do.
So
They do actually, yeah. But that's why I'm asking you, because like,
well, I'm the wrong person.
yeah, other people do care.
I'm the wrong person.
But you do match, Steve, you do match your hat and your shoes, I've seen.
That's bollocks. Look, you got a blue, look at a blue hat.
I watched a video with you today. You had a red helmet on, red shoes, a red shirt. You were like the most color coordinated person I've ever seen on a bicycle.
Well, Piers, it's very nice of you to take notice.
So this is a tie-in with the motorbikes and the e-bikes. So the wheel size debate is pretty much over with other forms of motorsport, right? Like, so trials, motocross, rally, like they've known for years what the optimum setup is. Do you think we're at the end of the debate for bicycles?
I don't know. It makes good content, doesn't it?
You cannot make another wheel size video. If I watch another one, I'm going to go crazy.
The thing is, right? I did. I remember the first time I did a 29-inch wheel. Let's not forget that Jeff Stieber was the first person to bring 29-inch wheels to downhill bikes in 2011, and it took the mountain bike industry 7 years. 7 years to caught on to that. And do you know, I remember when Twitter was new, and I went and did timed runs on a Trek something fish, Rumblefish, I think it was called, and that was the first time I did a 3-minute downhill run, and I was like 5 seconds quicker on this 140mm Trek Rumblefish. And I tweeted it,
wow.
And everyone was like, "What are you talking about? You've gone to the dark side, blah blah blah."
Sacrilege.
And it was like, it's like, because it's there's a massive image thing to do with it. And then, I remember when, Trek were actually the first people to bring the 29-inch. I remember riding the first prototype Trek session in Los Angeles in 2016, I think it was. And then obviously Santa Cruz beat them to it with the first World Cup race in Lords in 2017. You know what? And the thing with the mountain bikers, and they were like, "Oh my God, we need to have a 29-inch wheel downhill bike." And, people were modifying bikes which were never meant to be 29-inch wheel bikes. And just because of, some of it was image, some of it, obviously, actually, no, that's untrue. Most of it was because everyone thought they were at an unfair advantage. And I think it comes back to motors, right? Just because it comes back to motors and suspension travel, because...
And where you ride.
Where you ride, because...
And your height. I mean, I like, just to jump in, but if I'm buying a e-mountain bike, I want it to be mullet setup, just because I got short legs and I like getting my weight back over the smaller back wheel. I mean, I still like riding 29ers, but like my preference would still be always for a mullet bike.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
sometimes I have to ride a 29 because that's like the only option in the size. But,
yeah,
but for a really tall guy,
how tall are you?
175.
What's that? What's that in feet?
Oh,
5'10", yeah. You see, I think I like the M word bikes. I think everyone uses MX now rather than the other M word, which I don't use. I don't use the M word or the P word. I don't think I've used the F.
MX definitely sounds cooler, but like I still like the mullet or moulet.
So I think I'd like 29, 27.5 setup, but as long as it's complemented by the right geometry on the bike as well. You need a bike that can corner well, that can climb well, can descend well. So I probably would, if the track was super steep, I would definitely go for 29, 27.5. I think for trail riding on mellow trails, because I'm taller, I'd probably go 29.
Exactly. But Steve, all of these things, like, you know it, I know it, like everybody knows it. That's what I mean. Like, is the debate necessary to continue?
I don't think so. No, it's just, you just...
Okay, let's talk about something more interesting, batteries.
Yeah, cool.
Do you ever run out of battery?
Not anymore. Well, I do, but I don't. I don't know because
I mean, they've been getting bigger and bigger. Do you think now is kind of enough? Like, are they big enough now?
well, again, it depends. In the same way as wheels, it depends with wheels. It depends on motors. It depends on battery. Yeah, it depends, isn't it? I mean, if you, I still think there's place for people to have external 500 watt hour batteries. Go and do a morning in a trail centre, and then come back for lunch, have a bacon sandwich, and go out with a fresh 500 in the afternoon. And I think you can still have a lightweight, reasonably kind of lightweight bike. With those batteries, I think if you're going on massive adventures, yeah, I mean, I can go on my Canyon 900 watt hour. I can do, what can I do on a winter's day? Again, it depends. Winter and summer has a massive effect on battery range. I don't know, 6,000, 7,000 feet of climbing. Whereas, when I did the Tour of Mont Blanc with my colleague, he was doing 10,000 feet a day because he was 55 kilos and I could do 5,000 feet a day. So if you're in an environment like that, big batteries do matter for big riders. So they don't matter so much for light riders. Does it matter?
Do you think they need to be removable?
Oh, that's a huge question, isn't it? Really, because I was with the guys at Old Bay last week, and they said that in their tests, by having the down tube enclosed, increased the stiffness by 53%. Now, I think we need to be careful what we mean by stiffness, because we don't want bikes that feel like gates. So I think, so I think that the fact is 53% stiffer is obviously it's more complicated than that. But so Orbea they've taken that view now, whereas it's going to be enclosed in the down tube. I mean, it's already 750 watt hours. I think if you're the person who travels and, stays in 5-star hotels where there's like rooms to charge your battery, fair enough. If you're going to places which it's a bit more difficult, then I think it's going to matter, right? If you live in a house, I mean, where I live.
How often do you take out your
I
battery?
mean, here's my house, right?
Just talking.
I live in a little house, right? I live in a little house. Jane, my wife, is fed up with me bringing bikes and plonking them there. So an enclosed battery wouldn't probably work for me anymore. So I look to take, if I was bringing the bike back.
So you take them out?
If on most occasions I would do, yeah. Luckily, I keep the bikes at other places now, so I can, it's not such a problem. So I think it will be for people who live in flats and stuff like that, where they have to keep the bike somewhere else. So, I don't know. I think there's ways that, for example, the Canyon, you can take the 900 watt hour out of that very easily. So the bike, I think the bike is agile. For a 900 watt hour bike, it's still agile. It's still 21 kilos, and it's got a good flex to stiffness balance to the bike. So I think it's nice to have removable battery. Yeah, myself.
So switching the subject a little bit. So who are your favorite people to go biking with? Like pros?
I don't. I'm just a loner. I go by myself.
You took with a film crew. That's who you're with.
I do. Who my favorite to go riding with?
Who's the most fun on the trail? I mean, I've been riding with Sam and with Tom and like the high bike crew. They are so much fun to go biking with. Like what you see on the TV with those guys is exactly what you get when you ride with them when there's no camera. They're just absolutely brilliant to ride with.
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to ridden with actually probably all the fastest downhill riders in the world. From Voulios to Burrell to Petey. Sam Hill came to my home trails here 10 years ago. I've ridden with all those guys, and when I go now to South France and go riding with Burrell, Voulios, it is absolutely, it's mind blowing what they can do on a bike. And I can live with them for like 2.
Is it fun or is it just amazing?
It's not fun. It's like.
Do you have to walk the trails sometimes?
Well, that's the problem. They know their trails, and you can stick them for 2 corners, and
So that's the problem. That's why you can't stick with them, because it's their trails.
Yeah, but
Like in Wales, they'd have no hope. But
well, I actually did do that once, yeah, in the mud. But,
did
yeah,
you?
but I won't go into that. It's actually how. It's actually how. Do you remember a feature in Dirt called the 104? It was basically my local track, and when I was racing, my fastest ever time was 1 minute 4 seconds. So I remember Fabian Bral came over one winter to do some mud training, and he says, "Yeah, Gringo, just drop into the trail." So I thought, okay, I'll just go into the trail, and I just obviously went as fast as I could. And we came out at the bottom of the trail. He goes, "What the hell do you think you're playing at?" And I said, "What are you on about?" He goes, "No." He says, "You need to take it easy." So anyway, what he proceeded to do. So we did a few more runs, and so we lived. If you can imagine, we lived there, and the track started here and finished here. So there was a road that went up there and up there at the top. So myself and Jane, my wife, and Alan Muldoon from MBR, we sat in the house and watched Fabian proceed to do his winter training up and down this hill. I think he did 15 runs, and he kind of went. Every run he did, he went down a second until he got his fastest time. It was great to witness that. So, but yeah, I think from a competitive point of view, to answer your question, Burrell, Nico Voulios, in terms of his, how obsessed he is with the fine details of bike setup. I think the Lapierre GLP is testament to I think he's a person who,
That's an incredible bike.
yeah, he's definitely been ahead of the curve in his thinking on that bike. So in terms of future tech, I think you need to look to Voulios. I think for me, Chris Ackrig is one of the greatest things I've ever seen on two wheels on an e-bike. I think, though, the difficulty with it is it requires a certain way to film it. It needs to be slow speed. It's honestly, Piers, it blew my mind when I have to apologize for the people that have watched that video. I was swearing a bit too much in it because I was genuinely blown away what he was doing. He's lifting a 24 kilo bike 3 foot off the ground within a 2 foot radius. It was a 4 foot radius, and yeah, pretty cool. Danny McCaskill up in Torridon riding up some horrific rock slabs. So yeah, I think those people, to me,
they all genuinely love biking, don't they? I mean, that's why they're so good. They just like they're not just doing it for the show. Like they would ride bikes without the show.
Well, here's the story with Danny McCaskill. Apparently, he'll get up for a wee at 4 o'clock in the morning, see that his battery's charged, and he literally go out at 4 o'clock in the morning because he lives. It's like, and he'll do like 2-3 batteries a day. It's funny because I got invited to present Kendal Bike Festival a couple of years ago, and I interviewed Danny, and we talked about the Dub Slabs, a video which he did on Sky, and he's descending it, and obviously because you've got limited time, you talk about the video itself. But after the show, I said to Danny, I said, "Do you ride e-bikes?" And he goes, "Are you serious?" He says, "I'm obsessed with e-bikes." He's like, that's, that is, in a few years' time, I will only be riding e-bikes.
A lot of bikers are. I remember talking to Ollie Wilkins about that too. Like he just absolutely loves them.
Yeah.
Also Sam. I mean, so when we did the Welcome to High Bike edit with Sam Pilgrim years
that
ago,
was
we were filming with him all day.
He was like,
we were filming with him all day at Windhill Bike Park, like from sun up to sundown, and the sun was really going down. It was starting to get dark, and we were packing up our stuff. And Sam's like, "I think I'm just going to go and do a couple more like runs on the big line." Like, okay, not like start the day to the end of the day, non-stop riding, cameras away, and then he still wants to go and do a few more jumps. I mean, that's why he's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I think I went riding with Petey the other day up in Sheffield. He loves it. I think most people love them, don't they? I think. Yeah.
My kids don't love them.
Really?
They don't like pedaling. They just don't like pedaling. Like even with the e-bike, they're kind of like they're spoiled. They grew up in Salzburg, so like mountain biking for them is like gondola up, downhill, Leogang downhill. Like that's it. So as soon as they have to pedal too much, it's just I mean, they still do it, but they don't like really love it as much as they do,
Oh,
as much as they used to. They started at the pinnacle of biking, and so now we live in Hamburg. I mean, the trails are actually really good here
so
in
how long did you
Hamburg.
live in Salzburg for then?
7.5
Wow, did
years.
you? Wow. So
Yeah.
obviously you've been to the KTM factory then.
Yeah, for
I went
sure.
to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to design all the KTM and Husqvarna bike
Of course,
graphics for 7.5 years.
of
That's what I was
course you
doing
did.
there.
Of course you. Oh, of course you did. Sorry, sorry. I mean, what a place. I mean, what a place.
It's stunning.
You
Yeah,
see, for me,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I remember I went the first time last year, and Husqvarna were
Thematic Hoffen.
yeah. So Husqvarna were a partner on EMBN, and obviously I went to the
We're gonna have to edit that line out.
what line? Oh,
Husqvarna
did I?
line.
Oh, sorry. What? I'm not. I'm not talking about Husqvarna. I'm talking about KTM.
You're talking about the
I'm talking
motorcycles.
about KTM. Anyway, listen. So I went to Hawkeston Park in 1977 when Moseaf and Kavanagh were there on their KTMs, and I knew that KTM stood for Cronreef and Trunken Paul Zumet and Matagoff. And anyway, at this presentation I was at last year, they said, "We now want to welcome to the stage Mr. Trunken Pauls." I was like, "What? Well, like, is that the T in KTM?" And it was. And I was like, I was blown away. So it's such a place, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing. So, who's your favorite biker to have a pint with?
SDP.
And do you have any good stories that won't get anybody into too much trouble?
Great. Let me ponder that one for a minute. Oh dear, that's not. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't start with that question.
When the coffee was kicking in.
Yeah. So can I? I'll ponder that for a minute. Ooh, I do like a beer with Pete. I have to say, because you like. Yeah, it's a good vibe. I think. To be honest, Piers, I like having a beer with anybody, really. But they don't have to be a mountain biker. In many ways, I like having beer with non-mountain bikers.
So you can talk about something else.
Exactly.
We can talk about something else too. Yeah, I got a question for you. If you were a food, what would you be?
Oh, God. The thing is, Piers, you need to be able to think that way. I don't think that way.
You don't think of yourself as a food.
Is there any more coffee in here?
You could say coffee. I mean, it's not technically a food, but
Well, it is. I've got no idea. I'm sure some people have got an opinion what I might be as a food.
Okay. So, also another non-biking question. So, have there been any books that you've read that have changed your life?
Yeah, I love reading books actually. Last book I read was The Power of Geography, which is a great sort of overview of stuff that's going on, conflicts that's going on in the world right now, and how geography.
I've read that. How so much of the geopolitical situation is ruled by like the limitations that are placed on the countries by their geography.
It's like
access to warm ports and stuff like that rather than ice ports.
Yeah, and things I didn't know that were going on in the world, like the Sahel and stuff that's going on in Iran and Turkey. It's I think it's a book everybody should read. I think that's a good one. That's my most recent one. I think Range is a good book which I read recently.
So I'm sure there's some people listening to this hopefully there's some people listening to this, possibly not. But
yeah, they'll see the name and they'll be like, "Oh, give that one a miss."
So, do you have any advice to anybody who wants to get into the bike industry?
Give me a call.
A man with connections.
No, honestly, tell them to give me a call. Well, I don't know if I can leave my email. I won't leave my phone number, but I'm sure there's ways to get hold of me on Instagram or something like that. I'm honestly more than happy because I think, obviously, it depends what part of the bike industry you want to get into, right? I mean, if you want to be a designer, you can talk to Piers Spencer Phillips. If you want to be a racer, you talk to Nico Vulios. If you want to be a photographer, you speak to I don't know, Sven, or there's loads of people, isn't there? And I think videographer. Oh, actually, you want to be a photographer? Speak to Sterling Lawrence. If you want to, yeah. If you want to, I tell you what I love.
So just reach out to people. I mean, it's good advice.
I
So,
tell you who I like having a beer with is Mark Weir. So what? Yeah, Mark Weir and his friends. So that's a good day out. I have to say. But yeah, I think I think it's difficult to get writers. I think script writers, presenters, all kinds of people. I think I'm
you mean in your businesses, they're on the
well, I
lookout for
think
people.
magazine journalism. It was really difficult to get people to write for Dirt magazine. I think photography went a funny way when digital cameras came around. So there was loads of people going to giving their photographs from that thing. No, yeah, I guess the answer is depends what part of the mountain bike industry you want to get into, right? What would you say?
I mean, I got my start in the industry by actually, I was working in London. I was working in a traditional kind of like web agency, advertising agency, and I was so bored, like with the work. It was just not interesting for me. I was working for Deutsche Bank and like kind of insurance companies and this kind of stuff. I mean, the work itself was cool, like learning to do coding, learning to do 3D modeling, animation, all these kind of things, which put me in good stead for later in life. But at one point, I just started looking around. I was thinking, okay, what are all the brands that I used to love or what I do love at the time? Um, and maybe they have an opportunity. So I wrote down a list of all the brands, especially when I was racing motocross, like the brands that I really loved. And I had some Alpine Stars motocross boots. So I wrote Alpine Stars, I wrote Fox, I wrote, I don't know, like, yeah, basically like a whole list of brands. And then I just reached out to them with an email. And funnily enough, like Alpine Stars sent me a reply 6 months after I sent them an email saying, please come over for an interview.
Wow,
And I flew
wow.
over, I called a sickie, flew over to Italy and went and met Gabriele Mazzarolo, the founder of, well, not the founder, the son of the owner of Alpine Stars. And he basically sat me in front of a computer and he said, okay, look, I'll be back in like 4 hours, just do something.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so I downloaded all the software. And anyway, I made like a little microsite, a little micro website with some athletes and stuff on it. And he was like, yeah, well, okay, we'd love to offer you the job. And I signed a contract about, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. And in this tiny little town in Italy, in Asolo.
You
So,
see, that's a fantastic story. We should have started the podcast with.
and that changed my life. Like I moved from London, inner city London, to like this tiny, beautiful medieval town on the hill in
I've
Italy.
been to that town. You see, this is how we should have started.
Have you? You've been to
Yes.
Asolo?
See, this is how we should have started the podcast, talking about how you got into the. Can we reverse the podcast around? That's a fantastic story, isn't it? It's like, but I went to Asolo and to Alpine Stars, and I went around there, and like I couldn't believe it because two important things in my life. First one was they still did the Roger de Costa boots with a steel front plate, and they actually get.
Do you know the story behind that? You know where that came
No.
from? So basically, like Gabriele Mazzarolo's father, he had the idea after seeing the guys working in the abattoir. So they were like cutting the animals with these big, whatever machetes or whatever they cut the things, and all the guys working in there, in order to not cut their own legs off, they had these leather boots where they put this metal plate into the front of it. And he realized that actually, they were all into motorbikes as well, like pretty much every Italian is. They realized that these boots were actually quite good for riding a motorbike because they protected your legs. So they made his own ones and sent them off to some riders, and that was kind of the start. But that's where it came
Wow,
from.
that's great. That's funny to know that. And then I guess there was the Bernie Schreiber boots, which were my first pair of Alpine Stars boots back in 1981, I think, and they still had the original pair there on display. So for me, that was yeah, and of course that's such an important area, isn't it, for clothing and motorcycle companies. So name us your top 3 favorite ever motocross riders.
It's got to be James Stewart for sure.
Yeah.
Ken Roxon and I'm boring. I would say probably like Ricky Carmichael.
Carmichael's great. I mean,
no, I'd probably say Chad Reed. Actually, I take that back. I say
cool.
Chad Reed.
I mean, Carmichael's a great example of a small rider being able to make a 500cc motorcycle dance all over the place. Again, the whole thing about weight. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was a beast.
Fantastic. I think for me, DeCosta, Mikkola, and Karlqvist.
You're a bit older than me, aren't you? All right, Steve. Let's. So we're basically at an hour here. We're going to stick to an hour. I got one last question for you, just an easy one. So, what is the meaning of life according to Steve Jones? Is there a meaning to life?
To live, I guess.
Get busy living.
I think. Yeah. Simple as that.
Awesome.
I can't answer that question.
I think your answer is good. I think, it's just to live.
Nobody can promise tomorrow, right? So
make the most of it. Steve, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for inviting us. I think that story about Alpine Stars is a lesson to everybody. It's a fantastic story. Hey, listen, hopefully catch up with you soon.
Yeah, definitely. We still haven't been biking together, which is actually really has to be fixed. Hopefully we can combine the two at some point. We can go biking and have some beers.
Well, just let us know when you want to come over.
Yeah, awesome. Steve, thank you so much.
See you later. Okay, bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.